everybody, Regwin here, and this is my draft analysis video for my draft league team, the Utah Mews, for the DLC season 2.5 Are You and Below draft league, and I'm gonna be telling you about my draft and why I drafted what I did. Anyways, my first pick of the draft was Gudra. And I've drafted Gudra because he has decent HP, he has decent attack, 100 base attack, 110 special attack, 150 special defense, and he has 80 speed, so he's not super slow. And so he can be a bulky mixed attacker. And he gets but since we can't use weather, hydration is a useless ability, but he gets sap sippers, so he gets an immunity to grass type attacks, and his attack is raised by 1 stage if hit by a grass type move. And then he gets gooey, which if they attack him, if they make contact with Gudra, then their attack will be lowered by 1 stage. And Gudra gets a lot of decent coverage moves like Aqua Tail, Blizzard, Body Press, Body Slam. He gets Draco Meteor, Dragon Pulse, Dragon Tail, Earthquake, Facade, Fire Blast, Fire Punch, Flamethrower, Focus Blast, Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, Iron Tail, Outrage. It gets Power Whip. And then it gets Rock Slide, Sledge Bomb, Sledge Wave. It gets Super Power Surf, Thunder, Thunderbolt, Thunder Punch. And then it gets Toxic and Weather Ball. And I just really like Gudra because he's a really good Pokemon, and I just couldn't let Gudra slip away from me, so I dropped him as my first pick. And I was 4th overall in the draft for round 1, 5th overall for round 2. So I was later on in the draft. I was in the middle of the draft. And then my second pick was Vaporeon. I wanted Milotic, but it got sniped from me. So I picked Vaporeon. It's still a pretty bulky water, and it gets decent and it gets some pretty nice moves. It gets Baton Pass for initiative. It gets Blizzard. It gets Body Slam. It gets Facade. It gets Split Turn. It gets Haze to get rid of stat buffs or stat lowering or lowered stats. It gets Heal Bell, which is nice. It gets Heal Bell, which is really nice. So I can heal off status off of my team. And then it gets Hydro Pump, Hyper Voice, Ice Beam, Iron Tail. It gets Reflect. It gets Scald, so I can try and burn Pokemon with Scald. It gets Shadow Ball. It gets Substitute. It gets Wish. Gets Yawn. And so I just thought it gets Roar if I ever wanted to roar a Pokemon out. And I just thought that Vaporeon would be a very good Pokemon because it's a very bulky Pokemon. And it can it's a very bulky water type, and I wanted a bulky water. And I just felt Umbreon could do the role really well. Plus it gets Heal Bell to heal off status off my team. And it can use Scald to try and burn Pokemon with Scald. And it can Flip Turn for initiative. And it can use Haze to clear stat buffs off of the opponent's side of the field, so that's really nice. And so I just thought that Vaporeon was a really good choice for a second round pick. And I wanted to pick it before anyone else did, and it got sniped from me. So that was my second round pick. My third round pick was Salazzle, because I wanted a fire type, but the first two fire types that I wanted got sniped from me. I wanted Arcanine, but it got taken first round, and then I wanted Centiskorch, but it got taken from me too. So I picked Salazzle, and Salazzle is a poison and fire type, and I thought that having a nice poison and fire type would be good. And it has like decent special attack, and so it can use like Dragon Pulse. It can fake out anyone if I want to fake them out. It can go for a Flamethrower. It can go for Nasty Plot to raise its special attack by 2 stages. It can knock off the opponent if I ever wanted to do that. And it gets Taunt, so I can like taunt the Pokemon. And it has the Corrosion ability, so it can poison anything. So I can Toxic Poison anything. So I can Toxic Poison any Pokemon, including other Poison types and Steel types, so that's really nice. And if I don't want Pokemon to set up, then I can use Taunt. So that's nice. And then I was hoping that this Pokemon would make its way back to me. And it did at round 4. And so... Oh, and Salazzle is fast, too, and it has a decent special attack stat, so, yeah. Anyway, now on to my pick number 4. I was really hoping this Pokemon would come back to me, and it did. And that Pokemon is Miltank. And I'm very happy I got this thing. It has, like, some good abilities. It has Thick Fat, Scrappy, and Sap Zipper. Scrappy makes it so it can hit ghost types, and Thick Fat makes it so fire and ice type moves do less damage to it. And then Sap Zipper makes it immune to grass type moves and raises its attack by 1 stage. So that's really good. And Miltank is like actually pretty fast, has pretty decent HP with 95 base HP, and then it has 80 base attack, which isn't bad. And then it has 105 defense, which is pretty good. Its special attack is low with only 40 special attack, but it has decent special defense too with 70 special defense, and then it has 100 speed. So that's really good. And so it's pretty fast, and Miltank has like Body Press, Body Slam for stab. It can use Brick Break, Double Edge if I really wanted to, Earthquake, Facade in case it gets burned or whatever, Fire Punch. It can use Hammer Arm. It's another Heal Bell user, so that's good. It gets high horsepower. It gets Ice Punch. It gets Play Rough. It gets reliable recovery and milk drink, so that's nice. It gets Rock Slide. It can do constant damage. It can do like some pretty good damage with Seismic Toss. Like if we're playing on the Switch, we'll have our team at level 50, and so it'll be able to do 50 damage to the opponent's team. And so that's good. And then it gets high horsepower, which is really good. It gets Play Rough, which is a nice fairy type move. It gets Power Up Punch to raise its attack. To do a little bit of damage and raise its attack. It gets Rock Slide, which is nice. And then it gets Stealth Rock, which is pretty good. So I have a Stealth Rocker on my team. And then it also gets Toxic, so I can Toxic Pokemon with Miltank as well. And then it gets Send Headbutt as well, so that's really nice. so I can use then Headbutt with Miltank as a nice physical psychic type move. And so that's why I drafted Miltank, because it's a really good physical attacker, and it's really bulky, and it has reliable healing in Milk Drink, and it also is another heal bell user, so yeah. So that's like some of the reasons why I drafted Miltank, and it gets like decent coverage. It gets pretty good coverage, so yeah, that's why I drafted Miltank. And now we're moving on to my next pick, which is Licky Licky. It was my first PU pick, but I couldn't let it get away from me because Licky Licky is really tanky, and he gets like decent, and he has like a lot of HP, being 110 base HP, 85 base attack, 95 defense, 80 special attack, 95 special defense, and then he has 50 speed, so he's slower, but he's really tanky and can hit really good with his offensive stats. And he gets decent coverage too. He gets like Aqua Tail, Blizzard, Body Press, he gets Body Slam, Brick Break, he gets Double Edge again, Dragon Tail, Earthquake, he gets Facade, Fire Blast, Fire Punch, Flamethrower, he gets Focus Blast, Gyro Ball, Hammer Arm, another Heal Bell user, which is nice, Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, Ice Punch, Iron Tail. He's a knockoff user, which is good. Power Up Punch to raise its attack +1 and do a little bit of damage. Power Whip. He gets Rock Slide, Seismic Toss as well, Shadow Ball. I can substitute with him Swords Dance, Surf, Thunderbolt, Thunder Punch. He can also Toxic. He's another Wish Passer, which is good, and then he also gets Zen Headbutt, so he gets decent coverage, and he's really tanky and can hit pretty hard with his offensive stats. And so that's why I picked Licky Licky. Now this one I had on my DLC Season 2 team, but I just couldn't. I was hoping it would come back around to me, and it did. And I had to pick it. And that's Gallade. Miltank was my first NU pick. Goodrow was my first round pick, and it was my RU pick. Vaporeon was my second pick, and it was my second RU pick. Salazzle was my third RU pick, and it was my third round pick. Miltank was my first NU pick, and it was my fourth round pick. Licky Licky was my first PU pick, and it was my fifth round pick. This was my sixth round pick, and it made it 6 rounds, which I'm honestly surprised about, and that's Gallade. And I wanted Gallade because he's really physically offensive. He has a very high attack stat, and he has decent special defense, and he's not that slow, having 80 base speed, which is pretty good. And he has 115 special defense, and he's a really good psychic and fighting type, and so I really wanted Gallade, because Gallade's a really good Pokemon, and he gets decent like physical attacking moves. He gets like Body Slam, he gets Brick Break, he gets Bulk Up to set up with, he gets Close Combat, he gets Drain Punch, Double Edge if I really wanted to, but doubt I'll use it. He gets Earthquake, he gets Facade in case he gets burned or paralyzed or something. He gets Fire Punch, he gets Ice Punch, he's another knockoff user, so that's good. He gets Leaf Blade, he gets Low Kick in case I'm going against heavy Pokemon. He gets Night Slash, he gets Poison Jab, he also gets Power Punch to raise his attack a little bit and raise his attack by 1 stage and do a little bit of damage. He gets Psycho Cut, he gets Rock Slide, he gets Shadow Sneak, he gets Shadow Sneak for priority, he gets Stone Edge, he gets Swords Dance, to raise his attack by 2 stages, He gets Taunt to prevent setup, so he's another Taunt user. He gets Thunder Punch. He gets Triple Axle. He gets X Scissor. He gets Zen Headbutt. And yeah. And he gets Wish as well, but why would I have him use Wish? He's more of an offensive, physically offensive Pokemon. And so, and with how good his speed is and how high his attack is, I could use him Choice Banded. And he could hit really hard. And that's why I picked Gallade, is because he's decently fast and he can hit really hard with his physical attack stat. And he's a really good psychic and fighting type, and so that's why I picked Gallade. Now we're moving on to just a sec here. Now we're moving on to my seventh Pokemon on my team, and that's Weezing. I had him in my DLC Season 2 team, and he did really good in that team, so I decided to draft him again. And he was my third NU pick. And so yeah, I decided to draft Weezing because he doesn't have a lot of base HP, but he does have like decent special attack, having 85 special attack, and he has a lot of defense, having 120 defense, so he's very physically defensive, which is good. And having 85 base special attack isn't a bad thing because he can hit pretty decently with his special attack stat. He's pretty slow, having only 60 base speed, but that's fine because he's very physically defensive and can usually like take a physically defensive hit and then dish one back out, which is pretty good. And he has like some interesting coverage moves, being like Dark Pulse. He gets Flamethrower. He gets Haze so he can get rid of setup, so he's another Haze user. He can use Heat Wave. He can use Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb, Sludge Wave. He can use Taunt. He's another Taunt user, so that's good. He can use Thunder, Thunderbolt, Will-O-Wisp to burn Pokemon. And then he can Toxic opponents, so that's good. And then if he really wanted to like heal up a bit and give the opponent less HP and get more HP back for him, I can use Pain Split with him. And that's kind of the main gist of Weezing, is that he can do some decent damage with his special attack stat, and then he can like Pain Split or Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb, Sludge Wave. He can Flamethrower, Dark Pulse, Taunt, or like Thunderbolt, or I could even Toxic opponents with him or burn them with Will-O-Wisp. And he's just a really good physically defensive Pokemon and can do decent damage with his special attack stat. Plus I can give him the Black Sludge so he can heal up a little bit every turn. And so yeah, that's basically why I drafted Weezing, is because he's a very physically defensive Pokemon and he can do some decent damage with his special attack. Now we're on to my 8th Pokemon, and the Pokemon I drafted for round 8 was Gourgeist. Gourgeist Super. I could only pick one size, so I picked the Super size. And it has 85 base HP, 100 attack, 122 defense, so it has pretty good defense. Not that good special attack, only 58 special attack. 75 special defense, so pretty low special defense, and 54 speed, so he's pretty slow. But he has pretty decent attack and pretty decent defense and has pretty good HP. And he's an interesting grass and ghost type. And he gets the ability Frisk, so I can see what item my opponents are holding, which is really nice. I can see what item my opponent is holding, and then I can play around that, which is like really nice. And the cool thing about Gourgeist is that I can go for like Dark Pulse, or I can go for like Energy Ball, or I could go for like Facade in case he gets burned or something, and I could go for Facade, or I could go for Flamethrower in case as like a fire type move. And then I could go for like Focus Blast, or if I want to use their attack stat against them, I could go for Foul Play. Or I could go for like Giga Drain to like try and heal back some HP. Or I could go for Grass Knot if they're heavy. And then I could go for Leech Seed to like sap some HP back to like take some of their HP away and heal Gourgeist back up. I could go for a Light Screen to do special attacking moves. Magic Coat I can use to make hazards go back on their side of the field to bounce hazards back. I can go for Moonblast if I really wanted to, as like an interesting special fairy move. I could go for Nasty Plot to raise Gourgeist's special attack by 2 stages. I could also Paint Split with Gourgeist. Gets Poltergeist, which only works if they're not holding an item, which usually in competitive they're always holding an item, so that's a pretty good move. I can use Poltergeist on them. And then I can hit them hard with Power Whip. I can go for Psychic if I really wanted to. I could Rock Slide, Seed Bomb, Shadow Ball. I could Shadow Snake, Sludge Bomb. I could heal up with Synthesis. I could trick them and swap items with them if I really wanted to. I could Trick Room. And then I could even Will-O-Wisp them, which is pretty interesting, and burn them and cripple them. So yeah, Gourgeist get some decent coverage, and I just all around find Gourgeist to be a pretty good Pokemon. Especially since it gets the ability Frisk, so I can see what item they're holding. And I just like the coverage that Gourgeist gets. And it has like decent, and it's like a pretty good Grass and Ghost type with decent coverage. And so that's why I drafted Gourgeist. And why I drafted the super version, because it has the best stats. And then another pick that I got, which I had only had one PU pick before then, and I picked Geonotic, which I really wanted this thing because it's a good grass and fairy type, and it's a fairy type, and I really wanted a fairy type. And it only has 60 base HP and like 45 attack, but it has like 80 defense, which is pretty good. 90 special attack, 100 special defense, but it's slow with only 30 speed. But it is a decent grass and fairy type. I'll kind of pretty much have to be using Illuminate, which has no competitive use because it affects spores against our rolls because of how it can inflict status conditions. So I'm pretty much going to have to just have a useless ability and Illuminate on my Geonotic. But Geonotic is interesting because it has really low attack, but it does get interesting coverage because it does get Dazzling Gleam, it gets Drain Punch, gets Energy Ball, Facade if it ever gets burned, Giga Drain, Grass Knot if they're heavy, and then it gets Leech Seeds like Gourgeist does, so it can sap HP away from its opponent and heal itself. It gets Light Screen to reduce damage from special attacks. It can bounce hazards back with Magic Coat. It can heal itself up with Moonlight. It gets Moonblast for a good special attacking fairy move. It can heal itself up with Moonlight. It gets Seed Bomb, sleep powder. It gets sleep talk. And the big thing about Shiinotic and why I drafted it is because it gets Spore. And Spore is a 100% accuracy sleep move. And I just wanted Shiinotic because it gets Spore, and I was really hoping that I could get it, and I got it. And so I am so happy about this pick because I got destroyed by a Moongus with Spore in my last week of the season in DLC Season 2 because a Moongus had Spore and it was really annoying. So I'm happy that I got the one Spore user in this draft league, and in this season of DLC Season 2.5, the only Spore user in this season being Shiinotic, and I got it. And it can heal itself up with Strength Sap, which is nice. It can heal itself up and lower the opponent's attack by 1 stage. And it gets Synthesis, Thunder Wave, and Toxic, which is nice. It gets like Synthesis too, so it can heal itself up with Synthesis, but it gets Strength Sap, which is really good because it heals you up and reduces the opponent's attack by 1 stage. And I just love Spore because it's 100% accuracy sleep move. Interesting enough, Shiinotic does get Sludge Bombs, so that's interesting. Anyway, and that's why I wanted Shiinotic. It gets decent coverage. It's a really good Grass and Fairy type. It gets Strength Sap and Spore, and it gets a really good Grass and Fairy coverage, along with like Sludge Bomb and Drain Punch, among other things. And it's just a really good Grass and Fairy type with some interesting moves and some really good Grass and Fairy moves with like Strength Sap and Spore, as well as like Moonblast. And yeah, and that's why I drafted Shiinotic. Now my 10th Pokemon is Behem. And I really wanted Behem because he's a really good special attacker. He has decent HP, being 75 HP. He has 75 attack, 75 defense. He has a really high special attack, being 125 special attack. He has 95 special defense. But he's slow. He only has 40 speed. But he's really good. And plus, he gets a really good ability for being slow, being analytic. His attacks get Behem's attacks get boosted by 1.3 times power if it's last to move, and because it's slow, it'll most likely be the last to move, so its attacks will do more damage because it's slow. And it gets some interesting moves. It can get Calm Mind to raise its special attack and special defense. It gets Dark Pulse. It gets Energy Ball. It gets Facade if it ever gets burned or whatever, but why would I use it physical? Like it's a main draw as being a special attacker. It gets Splash Cannon, which is interesting, and then it gets Light Screen to reduce special attacking moves. To reduce hits from special moves. It's Magic Coat to bounce hazards back, basically. And then it gets Nasty Plot to raise its special attack by 2 stages. Pain Split. It's another Pain Split user. It gets Psychic, Psyshock. It gets Recover, so it has reliable recovery and recover. It has Reflect to reduce moves from physical attacking moves. It gets Rock Slide, which is interesting. It gets Shadow Ball. It gets Stored Power, so the more I raise its stats, the more damage Stored Power will do. It gets Teleport, which in Gen A makes it so that way you gain initiative. You basically just switch out for a different Pokemon on your team. So it's basically like you go for teleport and then just switch out into another Pokemon for initiative. And then it gets like Thunderbolt, Thunder Wave, it gets Toxic, Tri-Attack. It can also trick the opponent. And I can also swap items with it by using Trick. It's Trick Room. But why would you use Trick Room? It's better if BHM moves last because of an analytic. And yeah, that's basically the coverage it gets. It gets pretty good coverage, and it gets analytic, which boosts its attack if it goes last. And it gets a reliable recovery and recover. And yeah. And that's why I drafted BHM, is because he's a really good special attacker. And with analytic, he can hit really hard with his special attack stat. And he has decent special defense, and actually not that bad defense. And so he can probably take a hit, and then he can dish back a really hard hit. And he's just a really good psychic type that can hit really hard with its special attack stat and gets decent coverage. And yeah, and that's why I drafted BHM. Now my 11th pick, my second to last Pokemon on the team is Ludicolo. And I really wanted Ludicolo because he was still around, and I really wanted him because he's a really good water and grass type. And I know I already have a grass type, but having a water and grass type could be really good because having water and grass together is just a really good typing combination. And I just figured that it could be a really good Pokemon to have. Now I can't use the Switch Rim or Rain Dish abilities because weather is banned in this league. It's banned. So the best ability that I'll be able to use is on Tempo. But he does get some interesting moves. He gets like Blizzard, he gets Body Slam, he gets Brick Break, he gets like Double Edge, he gets Drain Punch, Energy Ball, Facade if I ever get burned or whatever. Fake Out, I can use Fake Out on the opponent's Pokemon. He's a Fake Out user. He gets Fire Punch, Focus Blast. I can use Giga Drain. I can Grass Knot if the Pokemon is heavy. Hydro Pump, he gets Hyper Voice. Ice Beam, Ice Punch, he's another knockoff user. He gets Leaf Storm. He gets Leech Seed. He's another Leech Seed user. Power Up Punch. He gets Scald, Seed Bomb, another Seismic Toss user. Substitute if I really wanted to. Surf, Swords Dance, Synthesis, Thunder Punch. He gets Toxic as well. Waterfall, Weather Ball, and he also gets Zen Headbutt. And so he gets decent coverage, and he's a really good water and grass type, and I just figured that because I really like the typing of water and grass together and Ludicolo was around, I just figured that I would draft him. I just figured he was a good draft pick. Plus, he has 80 base HP, which isn't bad. He has 70 attack, which isn't the best, but it's at least workable. He has 70 defense, which, like I said, with the attack isn't the best, but he can at least, live a hit, and then he can deal out another hit. He has 100 special defense, which is pretty good. Oh, I forgot to mention his special attack. He has 90 special attack, which is still pretty good. So he can do some decent damage with his special attack stat. And then he has 100 base defense. He has 100 base special defense, which is really good. And it's just really... 100 base special defense is really good. And so he can take a special hit, and then he can, dish out another hit. And he has 70 base HP, which is kind of slower, but it's not, which is slow, but it's not super slow. And so And so yeah, he can probably do some decent damage with his special attack stat, and even do like some damage with his physical attacking stat. His stats are at least workable, and he's a really good water and grass type, and water and grass together is overall just a really good typing, and Ludicolo is a really good Pokemon for like a lower tier draft league. And he gets like decent coverage moves, and his stats aren't that bad across the board. He has pretty good stats across the board, and that's why I drafted Ludicolo. Now this is my final pick, and it actually was my final pick, Wigglytuff. I figured Wigglytuff would be a really good Pokemon because it also gets Brisk, so I can see what the opponent's Pokemon is holding, and I can like play around that. Not only that, but it also gets the ability competitive, so if one of its stats gets lowered, its special attack is increased by 2 stages, so that's like really good. And even though Wigglytuff is slow with 45 base speed, it has 140 base HP, so that's like really good. And it has 70 attack, which isn't the best, but it's at least like workable to be able to use it's at least workable to be able to use physically offensive moves with it. And then it has like 45 defense, which is actually really low, but with its high HP stat, it can at least take a hit. And then it has 50 base special defense, which is low. Has 85 special attack, so he can do decent damage with its special attack. 50 base special defense is pretty low, but with its high HP, it can take a hit. And then 45 speed is actually really slow, but with how bulky Wigglytuff is, because of its high HP stat, it can take a hit and be able to dish out hits back. And it gets Baton Pass for initiative, so that's really good. And then it gets Blizzard, it gets Body Slam, Brick Break, it gets Dazzling Gleam, it gets Double Edge, which why would I use that? Drain Punch, Facade, if it ever gets burned or paralyzed. Fire Blast, Fire Punch, Flamethrower, Focus Blast, Grass Knot if they're heavy, Gyro Ball, which it can probably do decent damage with Gyro Ball because it's slow. Heal Bell, it's another Heal Bell user. Hyper Voice, Ice Beam, Ice Punch, it's another knockoff user, so that's good. Light Screen, it can bounce hazards back with Magic Coat, it's another Magic Coat user. Pain Split, it's another Pain Split user, it gets Play Rough, Power Up Punch, Psychic, Reflect. It's another Reflect user, it gets Seismic Toss. It can deal constant damage with Seismic Toss. Gets Shadow Ball, it's another Stealth Rock user. I can substitute with it. I can Teleport for initiative. Gets Thunder, Thunderbolt, Thunder Punch, Thunder Wave, Toxic, Tri-Attack, and it's another Wild Charge, and it's another Wish user, so it's another Wish passing Pokemon. And with all the coverage that Wigglytuff gets, plus with it getting the Frisk ability, so I can see what items my opponent's Pokemon are holding, and also with the competitive ability to be able to raise its special attack by 2 stages whenever one of its stats get lowered. That's like really good. And with it having 2 really good abilities and a really high HP stat to make it so it can like live hits despite its low defense and special defense, and it being able to like take hits because of its high HP stat, and having decent offensive stats with 70 base attack and 85 base special attack, it can it can take a hit and then dish out some hard hits. Plus, if it ever gets low on HP, I can use one of my other Pokemon. If I bring one of my other Pokemon that gets Wish, such as Licky Licky or Vaporeon, I can easily use one of them, have one of them use Wish, and then I can switch out into Wigglytuff, and Wigglytuff can heal up from the Wish. And so that's really nice, and so then it'll be able to take hits again and be able to deal out some really hard hits, especially if I give it the choice specs. Then it'll be able to deal out hits really hard with its special attack stat. And yeah, with its great move pool, great coverage, and it's how bulky it is because of its high HP stat and its decent offensive stats, and having a decent typing of normal and fairy. That's why I drafted Wigglytuff, and because it was still around at the last round, I just thought that Wigglytuff would be a good Pokemon because Wigglytuff is really tanky, and I just figured that Wigglytuff would be a good pick, and that's why I drafted Wigglytuff. Anyway, that's all for this draft analysis video, and I'll see you guys for week 1. For week 1 of the DLC Season 2.5 RU and Below Draft League. And I'll see you in the next video for DLC Season 2.5 RU and Below Draft League, week 1. My first opponent is the Piplups. My first opponent is the Twin Leaf Piplups, and it is coached by coached by Neil Patel. And that is going to be my week 1 opponent, and I'll upload a team builder for week 1, and yeah, I'll see you in the next video for the team builder for week 1. And I'll see you guys then. Make sure to follow me on Facebook at Regwin Plays for updates on the channel, and make sure to follow me on Twitter at Regwin Plays for updates on the channel. And please subscribe to my channel for more content. Please subscribe to my channel for more content and ring the bell so you'll be notified about when new videos come out. And I'll see you guys in the next video. See you guys then. Regwin out.